Madam President, it's Thursday, and it's one of the best times of the week for me, and I know the parliamentarians and others who work here in the Senate. Now the pages are going to learn this too, because it's the time every week I get to talk about what I call the Alaskan of the Week. Someone who's made a difference in my state, someone who's doing a great job, someone who's oftentimes unsung hero, doesn't get a lot of attention, but deserves it. So that's what we do here. And as I like to say, Alaska's a very, very beautiful state. I think the most beautiful state in the country, probably the most beautiful place in the world. And now summer has arrived. The sun hardly ever sets. The fish are running. The air is drenched in the energy of summer. So now is the time to visit. Everybody's watching or watching on TV. You got to come visit. The presiding officer came a couple summers ago. We had a great time. Her father was out there during World War II, which is a great honor. So you'll have the trip of a lifetime. By the way, you'll also have the best food in the world. Interestingly enough, in the Senate on Thursdays, one senator typically hosts a lunch. Today I'm hosting, so my colleagues, I think they like this. You can almost smell the aroma. Right now we're baking it in the kitchen here. Salmon, halibut, reindeer sausage. We're all going to be treated to that in a little bit. But what's most truly amazing, Madam President, about my state is the people who call it home. Smart, creative, energetic, caring people who are focused on helping each other. And so today I want to talk about our Alaskan of the Week, Mr. Greg Brown. He comes as a suggestion from some members, actually quite a few members of my staff, who call him Mr. Brown. In fact, the lobbying campaign for Mr. Brown to be the Alaskan of the Week, I can just say, in my office has been intense. Mr. Brown, as he's known far and wide among those who went to Anchorage's Diamond High School, is a legend among his former students at Diamond, where for 25 years he taught European and U.S. history, art history, philosophy, student government. Now, many of us are fortunate enough to have that person, that teacher, usually it is a teacher, who has really changed our lives, showed us the pure joy of learning. And as my director of constituent relations, Rachel Bylsma, put it, that person who made history come alive, that person who made an indelible impact on someone's lives, or many lives. And so for Rachel and Andrew, who's here with me on the floor, one of my interns, and 5 members of my staff in D.C. and back home in Alaska, that person has been Mr. Brown. So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Brown. Originally from Texas, when he was 15 years old, his family moved to Alaska when his father, who was in the oil business, got transferred to Alaska. A lot of Texans are up in Alaska, and then they fall in love with it, like he did. He moved back to Texas as a teenager, but Alaska still beckoned, and it was never really out of his mind. So in 1989, when his father moved back again, he came back, now with a master's degree and a few years of teaching himself, and he never left. He was a substitute teacher for a while, and in 1993 he got a full-time position at Diamond High, where he has stayed, learned, taught, and where he has inspired thousands and thousands of students. Think about it, 25 years. So what makes a good teacher? According to Mr. Brown, it's vital that you, the teacher, fall in love with the subject. Also, just as importantly, you listen sympathetically, and you should know how to reach your students. Sometimes that's through books, Mr. Brown said. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is to just play a game of chess with a student. And I think that's what you and Mr. Brown did. Isn't that right, Andrew? So, according to his students, Mr. Brown did these kind of things. Now, he was a demanding and an exacting teacher. The papers that they wrote for him were graded hard, graduate school quality. He demanded excellence. That's another great attribute of a teacher. but because of his passion for the subjects that he taught and the way he treated his students, he treated them like adults who were ready to learn and deliver. He made this huge impact. And learn they did. They read the classics, John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, Socrates, Plato, Machiavelli, Marx, Martin Luther, Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, and on and on and on. They learned about the profound impact the Reformation had on Europe. They learned about the ramifications of governmental authority. They learned about how art can be a language that reflects the present. They learned about how alliances are formed, how leaders are born, how the clashing of events can lead to devastating wars and world-altering peace treaties. They learned about the roots of all different forms of government, and they learned to love, or at least appreciate and understand our own government and the importance of institutions like the United States Senate. This year was Mr. Brown's last year as a teacher. He is retiring, unfortunately. He bought a plot of land in Willow, Alaska, part of Alaska we call the Mat-Su Valley. He's going to garden, he's going to fish, he's going to read, he's going to travel, but he's still going to be with us. And he can do that in part because of a gift he received from his students at his retirement party. Now, Madam President, this is quite unusual. This party that he had, that was thrown for him by his students at his retirement, was quite amazing. Hundreds of his past students showed up to pay tribute to Mr. Brown. Some of them gave speeches, many of them cried, and at the end, they handed him a picture that one of his students painted. It was a reinterpretation of the School of Athens by the 16th century artist Raphael, but it was substituting Mr. Brown for Plato in that very famous painting. And then something really amazing happened at that party. The students also handed Mr. Brown a voucher. They had individually raised $16,500 for him to travel the world. Now think about that. Motivated and inspired students over 25 years came together, threw a party, and raised money for their beloved teacher just to show him their deep admiration and abiding appreciation. Now that is really, really special for a special teacher. Now, what was his reaction to the gift? Mr. Brown said, "I wanted to go somewhere and gently weep. My students have always given me more than I have given them." Now, Ms. Brown, I'm not sure that's true. You've given so much. In fact, at the party, one of my staffers, I already mentioned Rachel, in her speech about Mr. Brown, she said, quote, "Each student you taught carries a piece of the precious gift you gave us, learning the contours of history and the trends that have defined the course of humankind." Powerful stuff. So, Mr. Brown, thank you for all you've done for our young people, for our state, really for the country, producing great Alaskans with a sense of civic duty and history. Thank you for being such a great teacher, like we have so many in our great state. And thank you on your retirement for being our Alaskan of the Week. I yield the floor.